I've been on a mission to become a fan of the WWE for just 3 days, 72 hours, and already I think I've uncovered who the final boss is. I know next to nothing about wrestling, and embarking on a journey to become a new fan, I'm willingly diving headfirst into a world full of countless characters and storylines, and a long, rich history. My first post documenting the beginning of my fandom received a ton of love from lifelong wrestling fans, and let me say, my deep dive has already revealed some wild moments to me. But my origin story of becoming a wrestling fan is apparently very unique in comparison to other fans. Here's the thing. This Saturday, the WWE is coming to my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia for a show called Bad Blood. Not knowing anything as a level 1 fan, I didn't think anything of the significance of the event. Only to find out from my best friend who got us tickets that this is apparently a pay-per-view show. And our first impressions, WWE fans are expecting this to be historic. This will be the first show I've ever attended. With that said, I've only had a week to get myself up to speed to avoid going into the State Farm Arena completely clueless. So my plan has been to become a student of the WWE, and thanks to the guidance of other wrestling fans, our first lesson was on family. This is my introduction to Roman Reigns, essentially the first wrestler whose backstory I've uncovered. This word might be overused now, but this is a man with natural aura. This is someone who, as a new fan, made an immediate impression on me as the top dog. Roman Reigns held the undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Championship for 1,316 days. That's over 3.5 years straight, and no one was able to beat this man for the belt, clearly showing that he's the top dog I thought he was. But he's not just the man of WWE, he's the man of his family. A family that I also was told by many to get familiar with. The Bloodline, one of wrestling's elite families. Upon my first searches, I was introduced to these members of the Bloodline: Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa. But the Bloodline is really an entire family tree, and as a wrestling group has looked different over the past few years. So I took a deeper dive to not only uncover the original members, but how we got to the point where Roman Reigns will essentially be fighting his own family at the first WWE show I've ever been in attendance for. And so far, this is what I've learned. August 30th, 2020, the day Roman Reigns won the Universal Championship and began an almost 4-year reign of dominance. And this is seemingly when he became the Tribal Chief, the highest ranking man in his family, by Reigns' side with the Uso twins. Wrestling fans regard them as one of the greatest duos in WWE history. They've won the Tag Team Championship 8 times and held it for the longest consecutive streak ever. As if Roman's dominance wasn't enough, his cousins were basically his original hitman. They're aggressive and hard-hitting, and their shady tactics and loyalty to their family leader is a big reason Reigns held the belt hostage for years. With them was their brother and another one of Roman's cousins, Solo Sikoa, an absolute brute, giving the Bloodline essentially insurmountable strength in numbers. Now related by blood to the family, I wasn't exactly sure who Paul Heyman was at first, and still have much to learn about his history. But he apparently is one of the greatest wrestling agents of all time, and with the right-hand man of Reigns and the coach in the corner of the Bloodline. So what happens when you pair the greatest wrestler with the greatest tag team with the greatest coach? You get a super team. But like the Bulls eventually did in the 90s or the 49ers in the 80s, every super team eventually ends. I'm still uncovering a lot about Sami Zayn, a wrestler I don't know much about and his storyline with the Bloodline. He's not related to the group, much like Paul Heyman, but he also didn't seem to have any reason to want to be a part of the family aside from wanting protection and trying to fit in with the top dogs of WWE, an unconventional character desperate to prove himself as an asset. He had to earn his stripes and was eventually adopted into the family, but his exit was the first domino to fall in the slow death of the original Bloodline. Roman Reigns used brute force to strike fear and compliance into his family. After all, he beat the Usos into submission in order for his cousins to blindly follow him, really as subordinates. And when Sami Zayn couldn't take the mistreatment and heinous actions of Reigns and the Bloodline anymore, it created a moment that I didn't even experience in real time, but one that might have hooked me as a new fan. Zayn was beaten within an inch of his life for stabbing the Tribal Chief in the back. And the spiral began. Zayn, now casted out by a family that brought him in, was out to dismantle the Bloodline. While he wasn't successful in taking the championship from Roman Reigns, He was a part of a tag team that would end the historic reign of the Usos at WrestleMania in 2023, a loss that would lead to the next domino to fall. Reigns had successfully defended his belt against Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, but was upset at the Usos for making the family look weaker by losing their belts. While he kept his championship, he would lose the loyalty of his cousins, ironically due to the same actions in which he received their undying obedience, or evidently only the undying obedience of one of the brothers. Reigns remained champion after Jimmy Uso drew a line in the sand and crossed his brother in order to remain loyal to his cousin. With Solo and Heyman still by his side, Reigns remained the tribal chief of what he could salvage from the Bloodline. Now, how long could he keep this up, and what ace did he have up his sleeve? Fast forward to WrestleMania this year, and the Bloodline is a far cry from where it was years prior. The Usos went to war in a fight with each other. Roman Reigns was set to defend his belt in a rematch from WrestleMania the year prior against fan favorite Cody Rhodes. But perhaps the most shocking twist of all was a branch of the Bloodline family tree I didn't even know existed: The Rock. No introduction is needed for the Hollywood megastar, even from me, someone who knows nothing about wrestling. Reigns' cousin, returning to the WWE to support his family and make life a living hell for the opponent of Reigns. Roman seemingly had it all. One of the greatest of all time by his side to make the numbers game almost seemingly impossible to overcome. He still had Jimmy Uso, Solo, and Heyman in his corner, and he was still champion. Over 1,300 days. But everyone loves an underdog story, and every dynasty eventually ends. Cody Rhodes went through hell and back to climb the mountain and become the champion in WWE, especially when it comes to the Bloodline. And at WrestleMania this year ended the record-breaking reign of Roman, not just because of his elite wrestling skill, but because the tactics Reigns had used to hold the belt hostage for years came back to bite him in the ass. Reigns was a man without his gold, and after his historic WrestleMania loss, took a break from action. When he returned, the Bloodline that he left looked completely different than before. From what I can piece together, Solo Sikoa was a tyrant, and now without Roman present to lead the family, assumed a leader role, not only declaring himself the new tribal chief, but going out of his way to erase any memory of Roman Reigns as the original, calling in extended family to assist him in his dominance. Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu. Solo planned to bring the WWE Undisputed Championship back to the family as their new leader, tilting the odds in his favor against Cody Rhodes in pursuit of his belt. But before he could fulfill his power trip dream,
oh wait!
Seeing this return gave me goosebumps even without experiencing the build-up in real time. Roman Reigns was the original tribal chief, now replaced by his tyrant cousin and twisted family that no longer recognized him as the leader. And while it would be impossible for me to cover everything in one video, especially as a novice fan, that brings us to Saturday at Bad Blood. Solo Sikoa, and who is now his new enforcer in Jacob Fatu, against Roman Reigns and an unlikely ally, Cody Rhodes. These two now united by a common enemy. For Rhodes, it seems this is all about finally putting to rest a blood feud with a family he's been at odds with for over a year. And for Reigns, it seems to be all about putting his family back in line and assuming control again after betrayal. While I may be new to this whole thing, there's one thing that can unite even the most bitter rivals, and that's a shared obstacle. This is the first wrestling show I've ever attended, and given the real family ties and a story that spanned years, there's no doubt that I'm going to be on the edge of my seat to see if blood is truly thicker than water. I did a pretty extensive binge of Bloodline episodes from WWE this week, but it was going to be extremely unlikely for me to catch everything that's happened over the years. If there's anything I missed, let me know in the comments and I'll check it out. And for my next video, I'll be giving my initial thoughts in preparation for being in the building Saturday at Bad Blood.